Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to JDB Selects. Coming at you today with my Round 11 Magic Round tips for the 2024 NRL season. But before we get stuck into my tips and predictions, let's as always look back at how we did last week. So last week we tipped 5 out of 8 games. The Sea Eagles blew another lead, this time against the Dolphins. The Tigers couldn't get it done against the Knights in Tamworth. And the Cowboys only played for 13 minutes against the Titans and still only fell 2 points short. And just quickly before we get stuck into the video this week, we have launched our Patreon. This is the place where you can go to support me, and in return you'll get a massive amount of NRL data and statistics and analysis for every game of every round. You'll gain access to everything from tries scored by position, win rates with referees, venues, days of the week, all of those good rugby league stats that will help you make better decisions on the punt and better tips for your tipping comps. Memberships do start from as little as $5 a week, so super affordable. Again, big thank you to our current members, and if you do want to join, the link will be in the video description. Now, if you don't know by now, we are running a subscribers tipping comp. All the details to join are shown on screen. We've got 3 massive prizes this season, so if you are keen to get involved, do that now. And speaking of the tipping comp, Manawatu Turbo has been dethroned atop the ladder after 10 rounds. Coach Killer moves into number 1 spot based solely on margin, in a 3-way tie currently with Auntie and Manawatu Turbo with 56 points. I do believe Coach Killer got a perfect round last week, so he would have got the extra 2-point bonus, which has catapulted him up the ladder. So congrats to you, Coach Killer. Congrats to you, Manawatu Turbo, for holding it down for so long. Good luck to both of you for your tips this week, and good luck to everyone else in the tipping comp as well. Alright, without any further ado, let's get stuck into my tips, predictions, and breakdowns of Magic Round 2024. Alright, Magic Round gets underway on Friday evening with the 7th placed Canberra Raiders taking on the 9th placed Henry Bankstown Bulldogs. Alright, starting first with the Raiders, they had the bye in round 10, but the week prior produced a big second half to come from behind to beat the Manly Sea Eagles 26 points to 24. The Milk were forced to deal with a fair bit of adversity, like Albert Hopewadi spending 10 in the bin, but surged home late, spearheaded by the return of Elliot Whitehead, who bagged a try double and had his hand in everything. Another classic Raiders performance to give them a lot of momentum heading into the bye. In terms of teams list for Canberra, both Jordan Rapana and Corey Horsburgh may be a chance to return from injury this week, while Chevy Stewart was rested in round 9, but should be able to return at fullback if required. And as for the Dogs, they managed to push the Panthers all the way until the 80th minute, but came up short 16 points to 10. Statistically, the Dogs were neck and neck with the Panthers, creating twice the amount of line breaks, enjoying more possession, and even amassing more running meters. Despite showing a ton of fight, Canterbury struggled to find a way through the Penrith defensive wall and gave away too many penalties at crucial times. Once again, an improved performance from the Doggies, but still just not quite good enough for the 2 points. And in terms of teams list for Canterbury, there were no new injuries, I believe, so I don't expect any injury force changes to the Dogs lineup this week. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Raiders have won 10 of the last 11 games against the Dogs. That includes 9 straight, dating back all the way to 2015. The Raiders have also won 2 of their last 3 Magic Round appearances, with 2 wins coming against the Dogs, who are yet to record a win in Magic Round. Ooh, this is a tricky one for me. I think obviously the Raiders coming off a bye, they'll be full of energy and running early on. The Dogs, though, they gave a really good showing against the Panthers last week. Defensively, they are night and day compared to previous years, but do lack points. I'm going to take the Dogs here 1-12. I think again defensively they are a much improved side from previous years and more defensively sound than the Raiders. They do just lack points, but I think that's coming. I think back off the back of the performance against the Panthers last week, they can finally break their duck at Magic Round. So Doggies 1-12. Alright, and the final game on Friday has the 8th placed Manly Sea Eagles taking on the 6th placed Brisbane Broncos. Alright, starting first with Manly, the Sea Eagles blew yet another double-digit lead last week against the Dolphins before falling short 26 points to 30. Manly looked strong early, shifting the ball laterally with DCE kicking early to get his side on the front foot. However, they switched off in the final 10 minutes of the first 40, conceding 3 tries in 3 sets in 6 minutes to find themselves behind and ultimately never recovered. To make matters worse, they lost both Tom Trbojevic and Jason Saab to a hamstring and AC joint injury respectively, with both players looking at extended time on the sidelines. So obviously those are two big losses for Manly. They should, though, be boosted by the returns of Lachlan Croker and Hamoli Olakau'atu, who are both due back this week. But certainly Turbo does leave a massive hole in that side. And as for the Broncos, they produced some long-range magic to gallop home against the Eels, 30 points to 14. It was all Parramatta early, and unbelievably, the Broncos had something like just 2 tackles inside the Eels' 20 in the entire first 40, but they somehow led by 10 at the break. Walsh and Mann both showed their class in place of Adam Reynolds, but I thought they lacked a little bit through the middle, with only Haas and Carrigan notching up more than 100 run meters. Nevertheless, though, another dominant performance while still being far from perfect. And in terms of teams list for the Broncos, Kevin Walters has said that Jock Madden will come in at 7 this week if he is fit and healthy. Billy Walters, though, is in doubt with what is believed to be ligament damage to his wrist. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Broncos, they have a great record against the Sea Eagles at Suncorp. They've won 8 of the last 10 meetings. They've also won 3 of the last 4 Magic Round meetings between the two clubs. The bookmakers do agree too. They have the Broncos at $1.28 favourites, with Manly coming back at $3.73. The line is currently 11.5 points, and the over and under is 47.5 points. Fairly straightforward one for me. No Turbo, no Sea Eagles. The stats, their win rate without Turbo is atrocious, and the Broncos obviously at home at a massive rammed first night fever Suncorp. I think Broncos 13+. Alright, moving now to the first of 3 Saturday fixtures, starting first with the 16th placed Gold Coast Titans taking on the 10th placed Newcastle Knights. Alright, starting first with the Titans managed to avoid a late surge from the Cowboys, hanging on to win 20 points to 18. The Titans looked bloody good early, racing out to a 20-point lead off the back of another impressive performance from Kieran Foran and David Fifita. That did all change, though, in the second half as injuries started to take their toll, with Philip Sami going down the tunnel with a hamstring injury, followed shortly after by Kieran Foran and AJ Brimson. 3 massive losses for the Titans. Defensively, they managed to hold on, though. I think they pulled off some incredible try-saving tackles throughout that game. You obviously have to give the Titans a lot of credit. Yes, the Cowboys were awful, but some of their scramble defense was just 11 out of 10. The exact thing you want to see from a side down on their luck, right? Just effort on effort, even if it wasn't the most pretty game to watch. As I touched on, some big losses this week for the Titans. Philip Sami, Kieran Foran, and AJ Brimson, as well as Harley Smith-Shields, all expected to be sidelined. Certainly a tough week for Titans fans. And as for the Knights, they managed to level their season with 5 wins and 5 losses after 10 weeks by taking down the Tigers in Tamworth 20 points to 14. It was a scrappy contest in less than ideal conditions, and Newcastle were made to work by the Tigers, but managed to surge home late off the back of some incredible attack, spearheaded by Bradman Best. It certainly wasn't a clinical performance by the Knights, and the scoreline certainly suggests that, but you have to give them a massive amount of credit for now being 3-0 since losing Kalen Ponga, when many people, including myself, had drew a line through them. Alright, in terms of injuries for the Knights, David Armstrong had a head knock towards the end of the game and will obviously be monitored this week. Tyson Gamble also went off with what was believed to be some sort of foot injury and is looking at a long-term, and that is expected to be a long-term injury, so we'll likely see Jack Cogger come back into the side this week. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, pretty even with both sides winning 5 of the last 10. The Knights, they've also won 3 of the last 4. In terms of Magic Round stats, the Titans have won 2 of their 4 outings, so a 50% win rate, and the Knights have won 2 out of 3, so a 66% win rate at Magic Round. The live odds currently have the Knights as favourites at $1.53, with the Titans coming back at $2.52. The line is currently 4.5 points, and the over and under is 45.5 points. Really, it's a Sunday poo slinger on Saturday afternoon, but we're going to take the Knights here, 1-12. I think the Titans, if they are going to be without Foran, Brimson, and Sami, that's a big chunk of their attack gone. The Knights, I've been fairly flat on the Knights in recent weeks, but you've got to take them here, given the injuries to the Titans. So Newcastle for me, 1-12. All right, moving now to the second game on Saturday, we have the first place Cronulla Sharks taking on the 5th place Sydney Roosters in what should be an absolute cracking contest. Alright, starting first with the Sharks, they recorded just their 3rd ever win at Amy Park, and in the process snapped Melbourne's 14-game winning streak at home with a gutsy 25-18-point win. It was a cracking game from both sides, and ultimately, though, it was decided from the Sharks' defense and formidable forward pack and outside backs that put themselves in a position for Daniel Atkinson to ice a crucial field goal. Atkinson was great and really took control of that side in Nicho Hynes' absence. I thought Cam McInnes was also another who produced some incredible game-winning / saving tackles. Despite all the controversy around, Harry Grant being sin-binned for what was a disgraceful sin-binning, by the way, for his touch on Atkinson's legs, Cronulla did want it more. They fought harder, they played the full 80 minutes, and thoroughly were the rightful victors. And in terms of teams list for this week, Craig Fitzgibbon did suggest that Hynes may be a chance to return this week, but given the amount of injuries we've seen last week alone, I'd imagine they'll be taking a very cautious approach. Alright, and as for the Roosters, they managed to produce 22 points in just 13 minutes to blitz the Warriors out the gates, cruising home to win 38 points to 18. The Chooks attack was on fire inside the opening 10 minutes, with both Dominic Young and Angus Crichton bagging doubles. Just when it seemed like the Roosters were going to run away and put a cricket score on the Wars, they came unstuck, to be fair. They ended up conceding 3 times as many penalties as the Warriors. They made more errors and even missed more tackles, but the damage was done early on in that opening 12-minute spell. And in terms of teams list for the Roosters, no injuries during that game, so I imagine they'll line up the same 1-17, with Brandon Smith still probably in doubt with that calf injury. Alright, looking at the two sides, head-to-head, the Roosters, they have won 8 of the last 9 games against the Sharks. They've also have only lost once in Magic Round, while the Sharks have only won once in Magic Round. The live odds currently have the Rooster at $1.71 favourites, with the Sharks coming back at $2.15. The line is currently 2.5 points, and the over and under is 40.5 points. Ooh, this is going to be a cracking game, like I said off the top. I mean, you've got the best defense in the comp with Cronulla, up against one of the best attacking spines in the competition with the Roosters. So who wins, right? Attack or defense? I'm going to take the Roosters in this one, 1-12. I think I'm going to err on the side that Nicho isn't named again for the Sharks. Now, while the Sharks were defensively rock solid against the Storm, they did lack some points without Nicho in that side, and the Roosters certainly aren't making points. They did obviously slack off against the Warriors, so I mean, this is, again, probably a coin flip, but for me, I am going to take the Roosters 1-12 on the back of Nicho Hynes not backing up again this week. Alright, and the final game on Saturday, after starting with the Poo Slinger, we end with another Poo Slinger, this time the last placed South Sydney Rabbitohs, taking on the 12th placed North Queensland Cowboys. Starting first with the Rabbitohs, they still were unable to record their second win of the season, this time going down to the Dragons 28 points to 14. The return of Latrell Mitchell probably couldn't have gone any worse, with Latrell making some very, very silly mistakes at the back. The Rabbitohs, though, to their credit, they did show some fight early on, but like they have so often this season, just completely fallen away at the back end of games. Their inexperience really showed last week, especially some of their outside backs and young half. It's really hard to see how they can improve. I mean, they just lack confidence, they lack experience, they lack polish, they lack so many things. Alright, and as for the Cowboys, I mean, you could say the same thing. The Cowboys decided to only play for 10 minutes against the Gold Coast Titans, finally charging home, but leaving it too little too late, going down 20 points to 18. The Cowboys played for the first 3 minutes of the game looking like world beaters, and then switched off for the remaining 70 minutes before finally clicking into gear in the final 10. I have no idea what's going on with that club, but they are in a serious hole, very similar to South Sydney. They have such a great lineup, but they just can't seem to string any performance together or any long periods of gameplay together. It's almost like they like being on the back foot. Like once they get to that final 15 minutes, they go, "Oh shit! All right, here we go. Let's let's try." It's mind blowing to me, especially given the amount of good players in that side. They should really be a lot better than that. But you have to give credit to the Titans, who put on a defensive masterclass, and then maybe not a defensive masterclass, but an effort masterclass up against the Cowboys side that lacked very much that. Alright, looking at the two sides, head-to-head, the Rabbits have won 7 of the last 8 games against the Cowboys. Souths are also undefeated at Magic Round, while the Cowboys have just a 50% win rate. Oh, like I say, Poo Slinger Saturday, man. Oh my days. I'm going to take the Rabbitohs here. You know what? I'm going to do it. Bunnies, 1-12. I think they are due a win. The Cowboys are just abysmal. Yeah, let's do it. Rabbits, 1-12. Alright, moving now to the first game on Sunday, the first of 3 games on Sunday. We have the 14th placed NZ Warriors taking on the 2nd placed Penrith Panthers. Alright, starting first with the Wars, they were blitzed in the opening 10 minutes by the Roosters and never managed to recover, going down 38 points to 18. The Warriors were all at sea in their opening stand with their new left edge combination of Kossi and Pompey coming up with some awful defensive reads. To make matters worse, they also lost Sean Johnson just after halftime with what is believed to be some sort of pec or shoulder injury, so he is also looking at an extended stint on the sidelines. I really don't know what's gone wrong with the Warriors this year. They were, flying high last year, and it really makes you wonder what the difference has been between last season and this season. I know we are dealing with a lot of injuries, but just attitude-wise, there is a night and day difference between last season and this season. You see Sean Johnson played his best last year when he had a smile on his face, and now this season it seemed like he's been angry or had his back up against the wall ever since. Hopefully they can turn it around, but a really, really tough ask against the Panthers this week. Alright, and as for the Panthers, they were made to work against the Bulldogs, but did just enough, squeaking out a 16-10 point win. The Panthers were all over the Dogs early, with Nathan Cleary producing a magical wet condition masterclass. That did all change, however, though, at halftime, with Cleary going off, having re-agitated his hamstring injury, and he is again looking at another stint on the sideline. Outside of losing Cleary, I thought the Panthers did pretty well to defend their line against plenty of attacks from the Dogs, and they only really managed to break through in the final stages of that match. So again, another vintage Penrith performance. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Panthers have a great record against the Warriors. They've won an impressive 18 games in their last 22 meetings. They've also never lost to the Warriors in Magic Round, so that is why, my friends, we are taking the Panthers 13+. Alright, moving now to the second game on Sunday, we have the third place Melbourne Storm hosting the 13th place Parramatta Eels at Suncorp again. Alright, starting first with the Storm, they couldn't make it 15 straight wins at Amy Park, losing to the Sharks in the game of the round 25 points to 18. It was a high quality contest that was evenly matched right the way through, with both sides defending games and producing some special tries. It was obviously overshadowed though by that decision to sin bin Harry Grant for minimal contact on Atkinson's legs, and while the Storm lost the contest through the middle in the second half, that certainly didn't help and would have certainly sapped a lot of energy from the Storm's pack. I am though expecting a big bounce back from the Storm this week. So in terms of teams list for the Storm, Harry Grant, he may be suspended. I'm not sure if that's been announced yet, but he'll obviously probably face the judiciary, and given current precedent, he may be given suspension. And obviously Xavier Coates is also listed to return from a hamstring injury this week. Alright, and as for the Eels, they were unable to get the win without Clint Gutherson for the millionth time, going down to the Broncos 30 points to 14. It was all Parramatta early, but they were unable to cross the line, making huge meters through the middle, while Brisbane struggled to get out of their own end. I think at halftime, the Eels only allowed 2 tackles inside their half to the Broncos, or at least in the 20, which is phenomenal, but they were still down at 10 at the break. The second half, unfortunately, was all the Broncos, with Walsh, Mam and Cobbo burning the Eels and blowing the scoreline out. The Eels could only manage a 62% completion rate, and when you do that against a side like Brisbane, you're always going to struggle. Alright, and in terms of teams list for Parramatta, Clint Gutherson is obviously still a few more weeks away. Bryce Cartwright is expected back this week. Moses could also be a surprise inclusion. He is due back in round 12, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he is named to play this week as well. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Eels have had Melbourne's number in recent meetings. They've won 4 of the last 6 games. Melbourne only have a 2-4 record in Magic Round, while the Eels have only won 1 in their 4 outings at Suncorp. The live odds currently have the Storm at $1.29 favourites, with the Eels coming back at $3.64. The line is currently 9.5 points, and the over and under is 45.5 points. Fairly straightforward one for me. I think even if Moses is back, I think Bellamy will have the Storm up and about for this one. I am expecting a big bounce back from the Storm, so for me, Melbourne 1-12. Alright, and the final game of Magic Round has the 15th placed West Tigers taking on the 4th placed Dolphins. Alright, starting first with the Tigers, they couldn't reward their fans in Tamworth with a win, losing to the Newcastle Knights 20 points to 14. To their credit though, I thought the Tigers were in that game for a majority of the match, but again, just find a way to lose games in the last 20 minutes, with their right side edge just opening up, parting the seas like Moses. Defensively, again, I think the Tigers, similar to the Bulldogs, are so much improved. I like their defensive structure. It works well. They aren't conceding the massive amounts of points they were in previous years, but they just can't score any of their own. It's so frustrating. They play the long game. They defend their line. They get down their opponent's end, and they just love it. They fumble. They They give up possession. It's so frustrating to watch because they deserve to score more points. And to be honest, just speaking to the Tigers in particular, I really don't see Jerome Luai being that spark that they need. They need a serious 7, not a fleet-footed 5'8" that's going to run laterally 200 meters per game. I mean, that's not what they need. They need direction and go forward. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. But man, the Tigers just need to find some points. All right, and in terms of teams list, John Bateman is TBC with that pec issue. He obviously went off against the game in that game during the Knights. Stafford Toa also blew his hamstring by the looks of it, so we'll be looking at probably a long-term injury there. And Junior Tupou is still TBC with that foot injury as well. So a few key outs for the Tigers. All right, and as for the Dolphins, their impressive run of form continued, coming from behind to beat the Manly Sea Eagles 30 points to 24. The Dolphins made it hard on themselves early by making plenty of errors, but were able to repel most of Manly's advances and sprung into life just before halftime, scoring 3 tries in 6 minutes to put their noses in front. Trey Fuller was outstanding at the back, and Isaiah Katoa played to the slippery conditions perfectly. In terms of teams list, massive in for the Dolphins this week. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow is expected to make his return from injury, which will likely mean that Trey Fuller drops out of the side completely, despite his recent run of performances. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Dolphins, they won their inaugural Magic Round contest last season against the Sharks. The live odds currently have the Dolphins at $1.35 favourites, with the Tigers coming back at $3.25. The line is currently 8.5 points, and the over and under is 45.5 points. Fairly straightforward one for me, I think, given current form and the return of Hamiso, that you've got to take the Fins here. So I'm going to take Dolphins. I'm going to take Dolphins 13 plus in this. I know I just gave the Tigers defense a wrap, but if they are losing Bateman and a few other players, causing reshuffles, I think the Dolphins can really put some hurt on to end Magic Round with a bit of a bang there. So for me, Fins 13 plus. Thank you as always for watching. If you are new here, leave a like on the video, consider subscribing to the channel, join our Discord. If you want to become a Patreon member, that would mean the world to me. And just let me know who you're tipping in the comments below. Thank you as always for watching. I'll see you in the next one.